Welcome back to our St. Louis Blues rebuild in Franchise Hockey Manager 11. After 2 seasons of make the playoffs back-to-back seasons, it's safe to say we are currently out of the rebuild and we're now focusing on establishing ourselves as a playoff team. That being said, though, we do have the draft just around the corner, and I do think right wing and left wing are definitely areas that we need to focus on. Obviously, leading the way, Robert Thomas is 30, so we're going to have to definitely look at his replacement over the coming seasons for sure. But Martoni, looking like he's starting to establish himself as our right winger, and Lafreniere and Olsen, and even Romani. So if we can even get a decent right winger as well, I do think someone like Aspie could definitely fill in those shoes, and even Dvorsky could end up playing as a right wing as well. We are completely stacked in terms of centers. Even someone like Witherspoon, not necessarily going to be able to make it as a center. He's going to have to probably convert to left wing if he's ever going to play with us. Even someone like Jonah might end up having to make that switch. Face-off 15 is nice, but obviously we want other players to end up playing. But Bossy Meyer looks like he's going to be pretty decent this season for us. Still on the fence of whether or not we start him, but a 3-star is obviously good enough to play for the NHL, but he could still end up pushing a little bit beyond the 3.5 from what they're saying. But he did look good last season in the SHL, around a point per game, which is pretty good. The 82 grade is definitely what's catching my eye, though. In terms of goalies, though, Dominic Basie, he is also in our AHL, but we're leaning on Augustin. He had a down season last season with 17 wins, a big drop from the 32 that we've come accustomed to. His save percentage also went down, and we've had to rely on Wall, who I thought was going to be more so the backup, but somehow he's leading the charge, though. Not the greatest in terms of playoffs. We did finish finish out of the second round for sure, but our defense looks pretty good. Dupont, Palika as our right D, and then we have Morrissey and Villeneuve as our lefty. Bernhoff will probably play as our bottom, and then Janicic made the switch to lefty as well, and I think Chris Farreau is going to have to play both. But we do have players like Ryland Singh who are probably going to play with us for the time being, but we do have a lot of depth also in terms of defense as well. Even someone like Theo Lindstein probably won't end up playing that much with us, but probably be more of an AHLer. Currently, we're very close to the amount of players that were allotted, only with 46, but we'll get into that later. Gunler is one of the guys that we're looking at, just a pure scorer, I'd say. Is what we're kind of looking for. Not much in terms of the defensive, but he's pretty physical, pretty good offensively, and we definitely need a little bit more of that. He's only 27, so it's going to cost us around $5.5 million. But looking at our cap obligation, we can definitely afford it. So this season, we're currently on the hook for around $10 million, but that's also with having around 32 players. So once it gets dropped down to around 30, it should still give us around a $5 million cushion at least. But people are primed for paydays, and Thomas is currently on 2 years. Bolduc we end up extending as well, Lafreniere too. But Back wants an extension. He wants $6 million next season. Not quite sure I can give that. Currently on the hook for the same amount for next season. So whether or not we end up signing him or not, we might have to find a replacement within the squad that we end up having now. Martoni on an extension as well. We did make some other extensions as well. Shergatt got 2.3 million, and I think Ricard's also on one of his last years as well. Some rookies playing with us as well. Defense, we extended Villeneuve, so we're going to be paying a little bit more for our defenders than we are this season. But I feel as though someone like Morrissey probably won't play with us next season. We can either trade him or buy him out, but that $5 million will definitely make it so it's closer to around 21 million. Palika doing pretty good at 24, and then Janicic at 23 as well. So still a relatively young team. Dupont is going to make bank $5.5 million. So around how much Morrissey's making. So I feel as though if we can draft a decent defender this year, we should be in a good spot for sure. Goalie's Wall's going to be under 2 years, and then Gussin we end up extending for just over 1 million. But obviously, some of our players are going to end up parting ways with us next year, so next free agency should look decent, to say the least. We can probably grab players like someone like Reinhold that we wouldn't normally rely on, just because it's going to be more of a league minimum. We can even get him now if we wanted. But Rossi I was looking at as well. I thought he could play right wing, but apparently he can't, so I don't think we need a center that's not as dominant in terms of faceoffs. 15 seems like average to me. I feel as though if you're an NHL center in this league, then you have to at least be able to have 15 or 16. So I think that's just kind of average for me. I'd rather a little bit more. Other free agents look like Bodkist. I was considering it, but he is 28. We do have Morrissey still, and I'd rather rely on some of our players already. Lundestrom was one of the guys I was looking at. I mean, his defensive is alright. His positioning's pretty good. I did more so like his defensive rating, but he did only grade at a 61 on Anaheim last year. So maybe not the best decision, and Borgo was also one of the ones that I was considering, more so for his defensive. So I think he only wants 2 million. I feel as though we could, yeah, only 3 million for how long? I think we might actually make them an offer. 3 years, we'll do it. Next season we'll just have to kind of adjust for that as well, and just kind of see how well he does. Spencer Knight's also available. I've always liked getting Spencer Knight. Tomasino, there's a decent amount of 3 stars, but no big stars were available. Dickinson, 34, Cotter at 29, and then Ekblad. I'm surprised he didn't retire in the off season, but Ekblad can't afford to bring him on. I think he wants probably a decent paycheck. Yeah, wants 4 million, but I don't think he really played that much over the past 2 seasons for us, so it would be definitely a waste of time. We'll do the draft lottery first. I don't think it really affects us, and then we'll end up doing the draft off camera and jump to more of a recap than anything, because obviously the draft takes a little bit of a time. So it does look like Boston and New York are going to get to decent spots here. Dallas drops from 1 to 3. That is rough. It's going to be New York, just watch. Nope, Boston ends up getting the top pick and New York with the second one. So that gives us, who is the top team? I want to see where we end up picking, and then we'll kind of we'll end up doing that and see who we can manage to attract on our team there. So currently we have 21 and 22. That is unfortunate that it's so far down. And then the second round we have the 54th. So not as dominant as what we've had in the past, but we can probably pick and choose the players that we want. Obviously, if I could trade away some picks this year, it'd be more favorable. We have a lot of 4th rounders and 5th rounders. Even next season, we still have a decent amount of picks, but I think this is probably the last season that we end up drafting pretty heavily, and over the next seasons after that, we'll probably end up having to get rid of picks to get better players. So let's jump to the end of the draft and see what kind of players we were able to find. Just like that, the draft is over. Good news, bad news. Good news is we didn't have the worst draft out of everyone. That belongs to Red Wings, Golden Knights, and Jets. Bad news is we didn't get any of the best draft either, so they didn't really rate our picks as that great, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Stars, Hurricanes, and Utah as one of the better ones. Stars currently got the best one. We'll have to look at to why that is, but Boston ended up getting Albanese. He wasn't the number one that I would have thought. I would have thought Berkeley Reed would have got it. Rocco doesn't really jump out at me at all. And Max Melerick, or Melekaric, I guess. Probably the first British one that I've seen that's really that good. 5-star potential. He was supposed to go where? He was supposed to go 5, and he went 3. But look at what Dallas did to get him to that point, and then we'll kind of look at what we did. I think we'll have to go into the Dallas Stars history to be able to find that. So their draft was as followed. They ended up getting Melikarik. I'm going to butcher saying that name all the time. Kenzo Gibson was also the other player that they ended up getting. Where did they got him at 53 and no, sorry, they got him at 33. So they reached at most of the players that they ended up getting. But Kenzo Gibson does look decent. Ryan Glover. I'm surprised that they're getting all that. Yeah, projected to go 96 and they got him at 65. So I find that all kinds of odd. Lee Bray I was looking at as well. Potentially getting him to come to our team, but obviously they end up getting before we could. 36 is what he was, so I think that's what it's factoring in. Vejmelka, not any relation to the goalie, but 81 pick, they got him at 129. So it's obviously all these that they end up factoring in. Just in case you're wondering as to why you don't end up getting drafted as one of the top ones. Somehow they got the 7th overall pick in the 6th round. That I find wild. That definitely made them win, if there was any other question about it. But currently, none of their ratings look that great. So, I mean, I highly doubt that they're number 7. That seems like obviously a mistake in the game, because I'm going to show you ours in a sec, and you won't believe it either. So they ended up getting a player that wasn't supposed to be drafted. But we'll jump to our team and then kind of compare to see where we end up lining ourselves with the best draft of this year. So we'll end up getting more into that here. Obviously we were loaded with picks, and I think towards the end I just allowed my my AI to pick, I think from Lucas Vilasech. But we'll look at we can look at their information. That's something they should probably fix, because I know in like the unsigned tab you can end up having the drop down and it'll show you everything, but quite unfortunate that you can't. So our first pick was Plaxon. He was, I think we got him at, where was he? 21, and apparently he was supposed to be the number 1 pick of the draft. Now, I mean, I don't see it, but I also don't think that he's going to be terrible. So lefty, right D, we end up going with the defender early on. He played in the KHL, and it's still not going to give me any of his ratings, really. I think he's more of a stay-at-home defenseman than anything, if I had to look at it. Just his puck handling, shot blocking, stick checking. Strength's a bit low and balance a bit low, so maybe not for that, but obviously that will improve. Two-way defenseman needs balance as well, and speed, so I don't really see him being that. Stamina, acceleration, agility, getting open is the one thing that's going to drag that down. Quarterback, probably not. He's probably going to be more of an offensive defenseman, actually, now that I look at it. But not bad for 21 pick, and then we end up getting Vic as well. I think I got Vic and maybe another save. Projected to go 68, we end up doing 22. So obviously that kind of factors into it as well. We went the complete opposite way, but looking at his stats as a center, he can obviously improve, but he can play left wing and right wing as well. I don't think it'll be much convincing to get him to do that. His mentals are a bit low, but I feel as though that should improve. But his offensive rating's pretty good, and his physical is pretty good, and even his defensive isn't that bad. So 15 faceoff, 15 positioning, and 15 stick checking. I'll take that all day, every day. We did get Max Osgood. One of the reasons we got it was because he's Chris Osgood's son, not necessarily because we think he's going to be the best player. I kind of just wanted to end up taking a chance on that. His mentals are the thing that kind of jump out at me. Professionalism, so hopefully no controversy. His shooting accuracy is pretty decent as well. He is a center and a right winger, so we did kind of take that chance. And OHL, you never really know. Stamina is pretty good as well, but obviously not going to be more of a defensive player. I kind of doubt that. Stick checking and defensive read are the only things that really jump out. I'd be shocked to see this guy stay as center, because as you can see, 13 face-off does not look that great. Dominic Zaleski from the North Bay Battalions, he was projected to go 16. Go figure. We got him in the 3rd round, so that's obviously a a bonus there as well. He had 61 points in 46 games. He can play center and left wing, but again, not much defensive rating in any of the OHL players that I've seen so far. More of an offensive kind of league, I guess. But physicals, everything's kind of green, so I do like that, but nothing's blue. And obviously, I like to see more blue than anything. But he was a rookie all-team center. I doubt that somehow. But the Bocage trade from last year, managed to get that pick, so not too bad. We'll go only through a couple more of these. We won't really go so much in depth, but we did get a goalie. We actually got back-to-back goalies. So the McCann trade that we ended up doing, I'll end up having to show the transactions that we did prior to this, but I mean, we also got Oscar Johansson just for an insurance. He was projected to go 30th, but we ended up getting in the 3rd round. 3.5 potential, not necessarily that great to begin with, so we did kind of double our chances here. We ended up getting Dan Meager. I know it's not common to grab back-to-back goalies, but we had so many picks, it just kind of made sense. And he was projected to go 20th, so 2 first-round goalies. Not too bad. I feel as though he's kind of a little bit more of the opposite. He's just high determination, high professionalism. So, I mean, I kind of like stacking the deck a little bit. See how much we can get in terms of at least mental. But his physicals are pretty bad, other than rebounding, puck handling, and positioning. His passing, poke check, blocker, and glove, all pretty bad. So hopefully that improves. But it'll be nice to see the improvement if it actually does happen. Daniel Makovetsky, don't know how to say that, ends up playing the NCAA. He was graded around a 70. Unfortunately, I'd rather be able to see his ice time on that. I got him more so because he could be a defensive player for us. Only center that he plays right now. His defensive read's pretty decent, and his passing and balance. But other than that, nothing really jumping out. He was projected to go 133. We picked him at around half of that. So obviously, just kind of taking your chances that way. Joey Stewart, I don't think he was projected to go anywhere. There is a little bit of green. Obviously, not a defensive player. It feels though you can get a lot of those in the free agency. I feel as though a lot of teams don't really value that in this. But 76 is what he's supposed to go. So kind of the opposite way with that. And then we'll end up going into probably 2 more, and then we'll end up jumping to the transactions that we did. So at this point, you just kind of take a chance, high determination, and you just kind of have to see whether or not they actually do develop the way that you want them to. But Russian right D, I'll take my chances on a 2.5-star potential player for sure later on like that. Babcock was the last pick that I'll show you. And currently free agent, but he was playing in the WHL, so hopefully he can re-sign with them. But 18 years old, 2.5-star potential. Stamina's pretty good, temperament's pretty good, but nothing else really jumping out at me. So he was projected to go 80. I don't see it. That was the trade that we ended up getting rid of the Sachins. So we got Babcock and Meager. So if one of these end up panning out, then we've already kind of won regardless. But most of these, I did more so rely on our scouts to kind of figure it out. Even Zeranak, stay-at-home defenseman, 15 determination, 20 professionalism. He was kind of ranked a little bit high, but the 51 grades and stuff like that do not bode well with me. I usually look at the grades to kind of factor that in. But those are most of the players that we end up drafting. We'll look at our unsigned, actually, is another tab that we don't really go into that often other than when we're signing players. So currently the best players that we haven't signed in terms of potential are Orchovsky, so another goalie that we ended up getting last year. He's still only a half a star. We ended up getting him with, really hope it wasn't a first round. We got him with a 3rd rounder there, so kind of seeing it a little bit. Kazda, also one of the top ones. Kazda looks pretty good. So he's only 1.5 star, but doesn't really look like that. Like I've seen worse players that are 2.5 stars that are like that. We got him with the 2nd round pick in 2027. He was projected to go in the 1st round though. And then Fyodorov as well. I think we had them in the Philly save. He did play for us a little bit. I don't think he played a whole hell of a lot, but I mean, I do like counterattacking players and obviously playmakers as well. His passing looks pretty good, but I think we grabbed him later. Yeah, fourth round picks. So obviously fourth round picks do kind of stack up. Those are more so in terms of potential. Vic's also up there. His offensive is already 15, which is probably the highest out of everyone. And then Plaxon, also the player that we end up getting as well that looks at the top. Spanberg looks good. 19 counterattacking, that's exactly what I want to see. And I still don't get why they don't really show it being that high on him. We did get him with a third rounder, but like I said, this kind of stuff looks like a first round pick for sure. So, I mean, I understand that maybe his leadership and team player and bravery aren't that high, and we don't need him to know face-offs. Hitting, yes. Shot blocking, yes. But everything else looks pretty green. Like, even just looking at his scouting report, I mean, yeah, we're not going to really rely on necessarily on defending, but as a prime goal scorer, he should be pretty decent. I didn't really see the character option in previous ones. But that so far looks like our team. We'll look at our depth as well as where these players kind of fit in. Vic way at the bottom here, but still probably one of the more promising ones. Kazda looks like he's primed to play with us next season. Hopefully he can manage to get a contract with Slovakia. I don't really want to waste a year of eligibility in a cheaper contract early if I can help it. Plaxon already better than Ryland Singh, so that is good. Kind of hunting down Chris Burrow, so I do like seeing that. He is only 17. I could easily see us bring him up next season, though, depending on what the contract situation is. Yeah, Penkin's going to end up starting this season. I think he'll probably be our top left winger at some point. Obviously, not much of a defensive player, but 4.5-star potential is pretty good there. Some of the transactions that we made this offseason, though, we'll go more so in terms of trades so far. Sear we got rid of for a third-round pick. McCann we ended up getting rid for Johansson and Dzeko for Makovetsky. So all in all, not bad for that. And we just have to kind of wait and see whether or not we made the right decision. I'll have to look back to see if we did anything before that. No, we got rid of Broberg before that for Stenberg. That was before. Signings, though, didn't really make any. We're still kind of waiting on the other one, and then we'll jump. We'll end up having to jump to see what our team's going to look like to start off the season. But so far, looks like this could be a pretty good year for us. Obviously, I said that last year, and we ended up getting knocked out at the same spot. But obviously, one win, slowly moving into the right direction. Obviously, defensive. We kind of gave up for offensive, but I think this could be the year. Let's jump to the start of the season and see what players end up making the cut. So looking at our team to start the season, it's probably going to look something like this. We have Jinsech and Chris Burrow starting as our bottom line there. We have Villeneuve. I think we're going to end up moving up to the top with Dupont. Morrissey's going to start with Vernhoff as our second line, and then Dupont on the top with Villeneuve. And then for our fourth line, we have Romani, Back, and Gunler, Pekarsic, Dvorsky, Lafreniere, Misa, Bolduc, and Olsen, and then Artemanov, Thomas, and Martoni. Now, looking at our depth chart, though, I do think that Penkin ends up coming up sooner rather than later. I think we're just going to kind of see how well he does over the first 10 games, and then you'll see in next episode that we'll probably end up bringing him up. I just don't necessarily want some of our players to get picked up by waivers. I think Romani's probably going to end up getting dropped down, and then we'll kind of see how things go with that. But we might make trades before the actual start of the season. Stenberg's currently starting on the in the AHL there. Meyer ended up getting the nod. We'll look at some of the stats that we end up having in the preseason, though, to kind of justify why we end up going the way that we did. But preseason-wise, though, 8 games, Thomas had 5 games, 8 points. Gunler with 6. Gunler might even be brought up a little bit higher than than the line he's on now. Misa with 6, Palika with 6 as well. Currently, it's not showing that Palika's starting, actually, so it's probably going to change a little bit before the start of the season just because we just played the last game. But we're going to make some adjustments probably off camera and kind of decide what we're actually going to do moving forward, though. But we do have Pekarsic also. He ended up getting 4 goals in 2 games, so definitely leading us to giving him more game time. 15 minutes should be pretty good for him. Back also with 5 and 3. He's only playing 11 minutes. I think we can keep him at that. I think he's probably our 4th line center at the moment, and I think we can kind of rotate him between that and right wing even. Romani with 5, Martoni with 5, and then Dupont with 4. Dupont actually played the majority of the games in the preseason, grading around a 72, so I do like seeing that a lot. Dvorsky with 3, and then Bolduc only with 3 going down. And then we have Meyer, who didn't really get much of an opportunity. We might even have to bring him down to the AHL to give him a little bit more game time, but we're going to try and slot him in as much as possible to start off next season, though. But with only 23 players on the roster, does kind of make things a little bit difficult. Goalie stats, though, Wall and Augustin played the same amount of games. I think Augustin got blown out in the 7-1 loss, though. So goals against around 9 versus 11. Wall actually conceding more goals, but that one game was devastating enough. 893 save percentage for Augustin, so he is 2.5 stars. He is starting to improve. We do need to still rely on him a bit. He is 24, and he definitely is our future. So I think once Wall starts to kind of going over the hill, maybe next season, Augustin might end up getting the reins back. But 2-0-1 isn't that bad. Wall 3-1-0. But save percentage, for whatever reason, is much better. 265 goals against for Augustin. He did only get the 3 starts, though. So only 7 games played. Dupont ended up playing all of those. But we'll end up going into the next season. Like I said, we're not going to end up showing the drafts and stuff like that. We might not even show the trade deadline. We'll just kind of go in at certain points this season. Maybe add an extra episode just to kind of see how this team's actually really forming, and more so kind of the backstory of everything. We'll go into like the history of players a little bit and kind of just create more of a backstory and more of a reasoning as to why we're doing what we're doing, instead of necessarily just stopping at certain points, because I don't think we're not necessarily doing that much in terms of the trades. Even just looking at some of the potential players that we could get isn't really that much. I mean, you have Jarvis there at the top player currently in the trade block, but not much activity usually at the trade deadline. I think it'll just be incidental that'll kind of happen at that point. But we'll end up rolling with this team. We'll have to wait till next episode to kind of see where the league ends up ranking us. If we end up actually cracking into the top 3, if we can somehow actually build on how well we did last season, and maybe start off strong like we did, but also finish strong is probably the most important part. So hopefully you guys like that. Leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and thank you for watching. Until next time.